Okay, I think it's running.
It is.
I think so. We'll find out here in a minute, anyway. So, um, what I would like to have you ladies talk about is what it was like when you guys were growing up, and Grandpa and Grandma Phelps and Grandma and Grandpa Turnage. You know, all of the people that we never met. Okay, and up through well, what's going on now? Pretty much. You know, we just want to hear about what our family was like.
I don't know that we can talk about that.
Well, I can.
Well,
I can remember going and spending, I guess, almost a week with my grandma Turnage.
is that right?
And and while I was there, this is it Millie Jane Gilbert?
Who?
That Millie Jane Gilbert, the woman
Oh,
that didn't
oh,
that
yeah.
lived on the lake and nobody had anything to do with, but she liked grandma. And she was a woman that didn't watch her language too much, and she spoke kind of foul language, and grandma would correct her on it. She said, "Millie Jane, you must not say things like that." Says the Lord doesn't appreciate that, because she'd say kind of curse words, and
Yeah.
she said you don't ever use the Lord's name in vain. And so she was always speaking a word for the Lord. She'd tell boys, she'd say, don't kill the little birds. When you shoot at a target. You don't kill the little birds. The Lord made them, and they sing to us.
Oh,
And when she canned figs, she had 13 children, but she peeled every one of those figs before she canned them.
oh.
She didn't can them with the peeling on it, and the only figs I peel now is the ones I eat, because I can't chew the peeling on it when I preserve it, you know.
Yeah.
But I can remember her, and I can remember the plaque that was hanging in her living room, that it says,
Oh,
Don't
I don't
ever-
remember anything like that.
don't ever go any place that you would not want to be, or speak any words that you would not want to be saying. And there was something else that was on it, and that you would not want to be, or do anything that you would not want to be doing when the Lord comes.
Oh.
And just, you know, that's the things that I hold in my memory most about her, and her getting on Murphy and trying to make him the best little old boy he could, and he was just as mischievous as he could be. And she was concerned. She wanted to know, says, what have you been doing out in the, they called it the, I can't remember what it was called, but it was a shed they had where they had some tools and things, and where I think they had parked some vehicles that they rode in. He says, I'm building me a pool table. Well, that was the worst thing he could have said, because Grandma was
Yeah,
so against shooting pool or anything like that. But she was a very good woman. She was a good mother.
Yeah.
And when Mama was talking about the family, she said we were a poor family. We didn't have any money, but we had a lot of love, and said we enjoyed each other.
Well, you
And
know,
that's the things I remember most about her.
Uncle Charlie Hurd
Uh-huh,
and his wife lived with him a while.
uh-huh.
And we went to spend the day with them while they were there. And, you know, he didn't have any teeth.
Uh-huh.
And he wouldn't get any false teeth. And so he just gummed everything. And his gums was just as tough as they could be. And I told him, I said, you know, I am so sorry that we can't spend the night with you all tonight, but we can't. And he said, oh, you can't. Yeah, and I said, no, we can't. And he said, oh, just like he's going to cry, you know, if we didn't spend the night. Oh, he was something else. He didn't work, you know.
Uh-huh. He could stand on his head. though, that man.
Yeah,
I know he could stand straight up on his head. He could do a lot of things, and he was a jolly thing.
Yeah.
Well, were the grandma and grandpa Turnage, were they farmers?
Yes, they were farmers.
Where did they
And-
Where did they farm? Where did you
Down in that community where they lived, it was about. Did you ever go to the home place? I mean, where the home place was, it
No,
burned down.
I don't believe it did.
No.
Okay. You know
Well-
where the road was that went by, the school was had burned when you would have seen it.
But it was very far from where the homestead was, as far as where grandma and grandmother lived.
Oh, it
About
was,
3 miles.
Oh, it wasn't that far then.
Oh, it was about 5 miles.
It was it that far?
Yeah, because, about 5 miles.
So grandmother's mother and dad was living right around here.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and how about
The Phelps,
the Phelps?
they just lived down the road up the hill from us.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And we could walk up there anytime we wanted to. We had trails through the pastures and all that we could
Yeah.
walk.
Well, my great grandfather Phelps, he was a farmer as well, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
But Papa was farming his land then, wasn't
Yeah,
he? He
uh-huh.
was old when we knew him.
Oh, was
And
he?
I think he had what didn't belong to Dad, he bought from the others.
Yeah.
And he had the place.
Okay.
That was Grandpa's place too.
Oh, okay. Okay. So, how many kids were in grandmother's family?
13 children.
And how about Grandpa Phelps?
Let me see. I'll have to count up. There were 4 boys, weren't there?
You see,
Papa and Uncle Ed, Uncle Will, and there was 2 more. Who were they? There was one we didn't know. He was dead. He was killed.
oh,
Somebody shot him.
Huh.
well,
1, 2, 3, 4.
didn't one
There were
live
4 or
off?
5 men.
Didn't one live far off?
Aunt Sally lived off.
Oh.
One of the girls. She lived in Texas.
Uh-huh. Yeah, Aunt Sally.
Yeah, Aunt
Aunt
Sally.
Sally.
Aunt Sally, and there was Dolly, and Mary.
You know, that's been such a long
4.
time till I
There
can't
was about
remember all
9
that.
children, I believe, in the family.
Big families.
9 children.
Because, you
in
know,
the
I
family.
went out to see Aunt Sally and them, you know, after we moved to Texas, you see.
Yeah.
And then her daughter, I can't think of her name right now.
Yeah.
She was, came to the house every once in a while, you know.
And there's 2 of the grandchildren that came to the house to visit us one time, but right now I can't remember their names.
So did most of the? It sounds like most of the family stayed right around the Farmerville area, and not very many people.
Except Aunt Sally and her family.
And they moved to Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the reason they moved there is she was going to marry a Phelps. And they were somehow related, not very much, but Grandpa was against it, and she ran off, and they got married.
Is that right?
And they got married. I don't know who told me that, but I haven't been knowing that all this long.
Yeah.
I think Albert may have told me, so I guess Thelma had told him. And she knew what it was. And so we never knew her until later years, and all of the other women had died. I never did know any of them, did you?
No.
His sisters. They all died young, and leaving families of small children.
Wow.
And I always feared that I was going to die and leave because of that, you know, because of family history.
Mm-hmm.
I feared dying and leaving my children
Mm-hmm.
for somebody else to raise. And I know the one that married Uncle Willis, her name was Dolly.
Dolly.
And she made him promise that he would never marry again. And he never did.
Well, you know, our sister, Adelaide and Arthur lived with them a while.
Uh-huh. I did, Curtis and I did too.
You did?
Uh-huh.
Well, I didn't know that.
When Jeff was a baby, we lived with him. Rudolph had planted a crop there,
Oh.
and he left. And Uncle Willis said he needed someone to come help him with it, you know, to work it and then to help gather it.
Uh-huh.
And he talked Curtis into coming up there and helping him.
Uh-huh.
And so we did. We moved up there, and, you know, we had lived there. And Jeff was about 6 months old, I guess, when we went there.
Yeah.
5 or 6 months old. And
Well, somehow or
Papa
another, I
just
don't
loved
remember.
that kid.
I didn't know you and Curtis lived there.
Yeah, I guess you was in Texas.
Yeah,
then.
I'm sure I was.
But you know, Papa would just hold Jeff and just shake him how he'd shake his knee
Yeah.
like that. He was so attached with that kid.
Mm-hmm.
And Mama said she told him, he told her, says, no other one of the kids is going to stay here with a baby that long and then take it off.
Oh.
If they leave, they going to leave that baby. He missed that baby when
Yeah,
it
I
was
imagine
gone.
so.
He loved that baby. But we did. We stayed with him until Curtis gathered the crop that fall.
Uh-huh.
And then we moved to, Monroe had this store, and he wanted Curtis to come manage for him, this little grocery store there. And we moved down in the old home place
Oh.
and stayed there. And that's where Jeffrey learned to walk. I remember that.
Uh-huh.
He was already a year old and had not walked. And of course we wanted him to be the smartest one in ever. Him and Herbert Newt had walked and he was just real young, you know, and I
Yeah.
thought, well now something's wrong. He's not walking yet. But he could. I mean, he could take a step or two and then he'd sit down.
Yeah.
So we got the alarm clock and he just loved to hear the alarm clock ring.
Well, glory.
So that's the way I got him to walk. I'd tell him, you can have the clock if you'll come here, over here, and I'd sit about this far from him, and he could walk the whole distance. And when he found out he
Glory
could-
walked real young, you know,
Mhm.
but Johnny didn't.
Sure enough.
Uh-huh.
You know, different one. Now Rita
Yeah.
walked real young. She walked the youngest, I believe, of any of mine.
Yeah. Well, they
That's
always
like at
said
10 months.
little girls walk earlier than little boys do.
Uh-huh.
You know, I don't know, but anyway.
So, how did you meet Uncle Brian?
Oh, we went to school together.
High school?
Yeah.
Here in Farmville?
Yeah. See, Brantlin's name's old place is right out here on the highway. And he came to Farmerville to, you know, he finished high school there. And I did too. But,
Did y'all ever date when you was in high school?
No, we didn't date. But I just knew him, and that was
Uh-huh.
all. And, but when I was working at Cleo's as a beauty operator, that's when I started going with him. He was dating the girl that has that owned the beauty shop, so he went out with her. So that night I went with him. You know.
Cleo?
Yeah. And then right after that he asked me for a date. Well, we did. And we didn't go together very, very long before we married. So, you know, we felt like we knew
I
each
never
other.
knew
you
that.
see.
I didn't know how y'all got
Yeah.
together.
So,
How did you and Uncle Toot get together?
Oh, well, we was raised in the same community, went to church together
Mhm.
all the time, and I was dating other boys. when he started going with me, I was dating this tall, good-looking boy and really liking him. And I don't know, but there was something about Curtis. And I told you about that incident. He's coming up to the house. That's the first time I can remember him doing that. But we didn't date then for a long time. I had to grow up, like he said. But anyway, I remember Elton coming out and talking to me in the school bus. And he told me, Chloe, says, I want you to sit with me in church tonight. I said, well, I've already promised somebody else I'd sit with them. Yeah, but he says, do you know that Monroe and them has got bets up? Says, do you want somebody betting on who you sit by? Said, they bet so much that Curtis is going to beat my time. And he says, I don't want him to do that. And so, and I said, well, I've promised him, and I'll have to go by my promise, you know. Well, he was just almost through with me to that. I had liked him a lot, but Curtis stayed big off and on, you know. And then he was called into the CC camp, and he wrote me letters. And then he was going with someone else, and I'd hear about it. And I knew he was. Well, I was dating others too. And, you know, I dated Alan Pilgrim for a while. He was a very nice guy. Mama didn't like him much. And, but he was a very nice boy. And so I dated him, and he was a good-looking man. But I never did, I liked Elton better than I did him, so far as feeling that attachment, you know. And I guess if Curtis hadn't come along, Elton and I might have had something going for us. But anyway, there was always that attraction going, and Curtis, and I was jealous of him. When I'd hear about him going with someone else, I did not like it. And he didn't like it. When I was going with you and Arthur, so they would have a way to go, you know. And I dated that old man. That made Curtis so mad. He said, I almost sliced his tires one night. But he said, I went back to camp and said, I tried my best to forget you. Said, I thought, I'm just going to forget about it. And he said, I couldn't do it. He said, I wanted to test my love. I can just forget her and go on. And he couldn't. Oh, Lord. And so I told him one day, he'd given me a picture. I said, you can just take your picture back, or I'll tear it up, one or the other, if you don't stop dating that girl. Uncle Lehman had told me, he says, that girl's going to ruin him if you don't make him stop dating her. He knew the girl that was in his community.
Oh, I didn't know you were such a girl.
So, anyway, he said, oh, you wouldn't do that. I said, you just try me. And so we finally settled things out. So,
That's funny. That's funny. What do you guys remember about your childhood and living on the farm? What's one of the most memorable times that you remember?
Oh, well, we worked in the field just like the other hands did. You see, Daddy had a man to come, a nigger man to come and live in a little house out there, and he worked in the field, and so we did too. We chopped cotton, we picked cotton, and we cut bushes. I did, and anything, and we just worked in the field just like anybody else. And
she was the cotton pickingest thing you've ever seen. She could pick 100 pounds of cotton, didn't you?
Yeah. You know, Daddy said, if you pick 100 pounds this morning, in the morning, I'll buy you a trunk. And we just worked. We got out there real early, just as it was just getting daylight, you know, and we think we could pick the cotton while it had dew was on it to make it
Heavier.
a little heavier. And we would work till 12 o'clock. And I got my 100 pounds. And I got my trunk too.
Didn't Henry and them help you some by putting cotton in your sack? They helped you some.
I don't remember all that, but I tell you,
couldn't pick like that.
And
I
didn't,
was not a good worker.
I think I picked about 15 pounds that afternoon. I was so tired.
You were. She was a hard worker in the field, but I was weaker. I came along and Mama said, "You'll never be as strong as Naomi and Natalie were." Says you're just not that strong.
Yeah.
And said because I couldn't do it.
Well, Chloe always had an excuse. At dinner time, right after dinner, she said, "I got to go to the bathroom." And our bathroom was on the outside at that time. Well, she did that to get out of washing the dishes. And she wouldn't do things like that. And I remember running her through the cornfield to catch her. I was going to give her a good whipping because. Oh Lord, I just never will forget that. I can just see me running through that cornfield trying to catch you. Oh Lord.
Oh goodness.
Well, how much acreage did you guys plant?
Huh?
How big of a area did you guys plant?
Was a lot of it.
Yeah, a lot.
You know, Papa had over 200 acres, a little over 200 acres land, but not all of it was under cultivation. Some of it was pasture, and some of it was woods, and all. But he had big crops.
Well, but his health wasn't that good. So
But
was
he did good.
Was he more of a delegator as far as telling people what to do, or was he out there working in the field?
No, he wasn't a worker in the field. He could not go even to the fields unless sometimes he could walk out and see how the crops were doing and things like that. But this Henry Norris that he had was a real good worker. And then he had two families that lived there that were the Washingtons, you know, that were up there. And she was a real good housekeeper and all of that she could help Mama every once in a while.
Well, you were last night. You were talking about the house you guys lived in before Grandpa built the homestead. Tell me more about that house.
Well,
the house that we were raised in from babies up.
Oh. Well, it was just an old house, and it didn't have any ceiling in it, you know, and I just don't know, but we didn't know any better because we just lived there.
Well, you know, it was not one of these houses that had the hallway all the way through it, like so many houses were.
Yeah.
It was a house that had a big front porch all across the front. And on one end, it had what we call the water shelf. And we had that bucket of water and our dipper there and a wash pan.
Yeah.
And that's where we washed our hands, and we'd get water and go to the steps and wash our feet and legs and things like that when they were dirty. And we had a dipper there in that bucket, and we all drank out of that dipper. Drank water from the well.
And you know when they did the washing of the clothes and everything, they'd leave the rinsing water out there, and we'd get out there to wash our feet and legs in that water, you see. You know.
And I was going to tell you the way it was built. There were two big rooms across the front. One of them was the room that we all stayed in, had the big fireplace in it and all of that, and had the bed in it, and that's where Mama and Papa slept.
Yeah.
And that was the family room. Well, the other room was what we called
the side room.
That front room.
Yeah.
It was called a a living room,
yeah.
but it had a bed in there, and that's where company stayed if they came. And then we had this other little room back there that was the boys' room. That was W.R.'s room. And he had a window in it that he crawled out of and slipped out when he wanted to. And then we had that other side room, we called, in there, and it was a pretty long room. It had a bed down at this end and then one there.
Had
And
another
that's where the
bed. It had
girls.
two beds in it.
I had two beds in it, and that's where the girls stayed.
Mhm.
And then we had the kitchen, and it had a window at the end
Yeah,
that slid,
yeah.
wooden slat that slid over. And when Papa'd go to town, and he'd be after dark coming in, Mama'd know he's gonna be drinking. I've seen her go to that window. Well, I don't hear her a bit.
Oh
Yeah,
Lord,
look,
my daddy loved whiskey,
Uh-huh.
and sometimes he'd get too much, and he would didn't want to go to bed,
Uh-huh.
and he would sit. Mama would sit out there with him on the steps, and I said, Mama, you know what I do? I just slap the spar out of him, and and she said, no, honey, you know wouldn't do that, and oh, she would put up with anything. Oh, but I guess I wouldn't. I just told her, I said, I just wouldn't do that at all. So I don't know. But he kind of quit drinking so much, you see.
Yeah, did. And he quit before he died.
Yeah.
For several years, but I've seen him cry because of the influence he'd had on W.R.
Yeah.
Talk about that. But I wanted to tell you about our kitchen. We had the old wooden stove, you know. Cooked the best food you ever seen. But Mama said she could sit the babies up in a chair when they could sit up and kind of tie them in a straight chair and go milk and do things like that. And they never strayed. We never strayed or got out of that chair and did anything that we weren't supposed to. But she had a safe, we called it, an old safe. And I've seen her fry those apple and peach pies that she'd make out of the dried fruit.
Yeah.
Have a stack of them that high. Those would be the best things. And
Oh,
have
yeah.
baked potatoes,
Boy.
rolls, and have all good kind of stuff to eat in that safe when we came in from school.
Yeah, for when we get in from school, we could, if she had fried tarts or baked potatoes we would go
to town.
Yeah. Yes,
Oh, it was good. Do you remember when the Newkirks came in?
The what?
The Newkirks to build that highway through there?
Yeah.
Okay, you know, this Newkirk girl was about my age. And she always had fruits and things like that in her. And we always had biscuit with something in it, you know.
Yeah.
Well, she would trade me anything, piece of fruit, for one of those biscuits. Or a fried pie, or anything.
Oh,
and we didn't have fruits like
all
that. And you was probably already on up in a higher grade. But you see, I was 5 years behind you. And she was bigger than me, and one day we got in a fight, and she just beat the star out of me. We walked to school together, because they lived over in that little pasture, you know. And
I don't ever remember having a fight with anybody.
Well, that's the only fight I have ever had. But she was mean to me some way or other.
Oh, yeah.
I guess I didn't give her what she wanted, and she was going to quit me.
Well.
So, did you guys all grow up in the church that grandmother went to? The Baptist church that grandmother went to?
Mm-hmm.
Did you?
Mm-hmm. Sign Hill.
Yeah, we all went to that, and that's where we joined our church and everything. I'll never will forget. You know, I was timid, just timid. I didn't just get out in front and everything. And I'll never will forget it. When they sang, "Only Trust Him." I mean, something just told me to just go right on up. And I wasn't afraid or nothing. I wasn't ashamed or nothing. I mean, I went up there and shook the preacher's hand. And I'll never forget that. I just have that feeling inside. Every time I think about it, you know, I said, well, I feel like I strayed a few times and everything.
Who hadn't?
Oh, Lord, and I said, Lord, though, he forgives, though.
That's right. I was talking to Noah yesterday, and I told him, I said, you know, in reading and hearing about the Phelps families, they either went opposite one way and made real good, or the other way and was a horse thief or something. I heard Thelma talking about that she'd read.
Mm-hmm.
But I said, you know, David, I said, he is a guy after God's own heart.
Oh.
King David. But I said, he did as bad as anybody. He even had this woman's husband killed.
Yeah.
But I said, he repented.
Yeah,
And I said that, and God forgave him, so that's what it is.
yeah.
But you know how we went to church? In the wagon.
Yeah.
Hooked the horses up to the wagon and rode to church. For many years.
Was it you that fell out of the wagon?
Going uphill, yeah.
We went what they all call the old Reagan Hill. We were in the wagon and we had the thing out, and so we had you were sitting down there and she fell out.
Slid out, just slid out. I was slid.
Yeah. Oh, I'll never forget that.
And is at the top of the hill before they could ever stop the wagon, you know. When the horses start up, you have to let them go on up. It's hard for them to climb that hill. And I had skinned knees and everything, I think. We were going to the Pilgrims to spend the weekend.
Yeah, Pilgrims.
And I think I begged to sit back there. I had never really sitting back there with my legs hanging out.
Yeah.
About my first time to do that. To be big, you know.
You know, everybody went in the wagons and things and I'll never forget the Tuckers had a surrey, what you call a surrey.
Surrey.
And it had a top on it.
Uh-huh.
And I thought that was something. That was something.
Well, you know, Grandpa had one.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you remember? And he let me ride in it one time. Grandpa Phelps?
Mm-hmm. I don't remember.
You don't
that.
remember that? Well, it must have been just he didn't keep it all that time or didn't use it.
Yeah.
Because he didn't go to church.
Mm-hmm.
He was turned out of the church.
Yeah.
Because he didn't believe, they said, like the others. And Thelma told us that he was a Mennonite. What are these people that wear these black hats?
There's Mennonites and there's Mormon and
Mormons, I guess, or Mennonites or something. That he was of that faith, and that, you know, that he took Saturday for the Sabbath, and said that was why he didn't go to church. I always wondered why he didn't go to church, and said that they had turned him out.
Oh, turned him out.
Turned him out of the church because he didn't believe, you know, the Baptist doctrine. You know, Aunt Sally was like, what was that woman that came and played the harp? She was
her
holy
name
roly.
said Aunt Maggie.
Maggie.
Yeah.
Maggie. She was.
She told me. She was at the house, and she told me the old devil was in me, and and because I told her. She told me the old devil was in me because I loved to play dominoes. I did. I loved to play dominoes when I was a kid.
And all of us then because we all.
And she knew I I told her, I said, yeah, I love to play dominoes. She says, yo, you just got the old devil in you. That's what the matter.
And cards, she didn't believe in cards. Well, Mama wouldn't let us have cards.
Oh, Lord. She was something else. She could sing and play the harp.
Yeah, that'd just make the hair rise on your
Uh-huh.
head when she'd play that harp. It was a different, one of those that stood up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it stood up and she could play. Let's see what else did we have in our childhood. It was one of
Well, it's
the
been
most
so long,
memorial
Lord have
things
mercy.
is the ice cream suppers that we would have, or eatings we'd have.
Yeah.
I have several of these old ice cream freezers,
Yeah.
setting in a tub of ice and feeding it that ice and cranking them, and people coming and eating that ice cream. And it'd be so cold that they just hold their heads and eat it so fast. It was such a treat, to have that ice cream.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it'd be so good. These electric freezers don't freeze it like that now.
Yeah.
They don't do it like that. Like that slow turning of that freezer. And somebody'd have to sit on the freezer to hold it still
Mm-hmm.
while you cranked it.
Well, I never will forget when we were going to make some homemade ice cream down to Miss Brantley's,
Uh-huh.
And so Yvonne and I decided we would make it up. And I don't know what we did to it, but it wasn't good at all. We just didn't do it right,
Uh-huh.
and we just laughed about that. The very idea of us thinking that we knew how to make homemade ice cream, and it turned out like that.
Well, after Curtis and I married, Ivy was going to make some ice cream. And she and Curtis got together and they were going to make this freezer of ice cream. And they made it. We'd gone down there.
Uh-huh.
And, that tastes that's good. Oh, and I got a bowl, and that stuff was so bitter, I couldn't eat it. I said, is this bitter to y'all? They said, we don't taste anything. Well, the cows had been eating bitter weeds,
Oh.
and that milk was bitter.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't drink it if it had any of that in it. I had such a sensitive taste to anything like that. Well, they didn't seem to mind it at all. But that's the only time I couldn't eat ice cream. But you know how embarrassed I was.
When they eat the old bitter weeds and everything, you just couldn't drink the milk at all. I couldn't.
Well, Aunt Naomi, when you and Uncle Brian got married, is that when you moved to Lufkin?
Do what?
When you and or Uncle Brian got married, is that when you moved to Lufkin?
No, we 2.5 years, I believe, because Gloria was 2 years old, I believe, when we moved. We moved. We lived in Sterlington for 2 years, and he worked at the Louisiana and Power Light Company until about 6 months, or I guess, and he worked at that plant across the street from him, and he has a friend that worked at the Louisiana and Power Light that moved to Lufkin a year or two ago, before that time, and he let Brian know that there was an opening at the Lufkin mill, and so he went out there, and he didn't miss a day's work. We moved out there and lived with the bishops for 2 weeks before we found a home, and then we bought a home and moved there.
Is that the home that you lived in for as long as you were there at Lufkin?
No, we bought another house after the kids left, a larger house and a nicer house, just in town, and
I never did see that place, I don't guess.
no, I don't guess you did either. On Jane Street, and So we didn't have any trouble selling the house when we got ready to move here, you see. And we came home several times while they were building, and so that and then he had trouble. He was taking high blood pressure medicine. Has been taking it ever since he was 30 years old, and he knew he had to quit. I mean, he just felt like it was the best for the company, and so he retired when he was 65, and I mean 2 years before he was 65, and then we moved here in 78 or 79, I don't know which it was. And, so we've been here ever since.
Yeah.
How long did you and Uncle Toot live in Minden? When did you move there?
Let's see, we moved there in must have been around 40, 39 or 40.
Okay, so that was shortly after Jeff was born then.
Let's see, we moved to Bossier when Jeff was about a year old, a little over a year old, I believe.
I
That
didn't
would
know
have
you
been
lived in
39.
Bossier.
Yeah, we lived there for a year, imagine, because we first had an apartment in one side of Bossier, and the woman didn't like it because he was big enough to walk, you know, and he slammed the toilet seat down. And she made me cry because she fussed about that kid, you know, shoving it. And so I told Curtis, I said, we can't stay here. I'm not going to put up with that. So we got a little upstairs apartment, just in somewhere over close to the base.
Yeah.
And that's where we're living on. So he may have been about 2, because he had his 3rd birthday. Had his 3rd birthday, I believe, on when Pearl Harbor was struck. And so we didn't stay there long because with a child like that, it wasn't a good apartment. It was just a very small one. We got a little house just down the street from there. And that's the dirtiest house I've ever seen. Curtis and I worked on that 2 days, getting it cleaned up to where we could move in it. But we liked it because it had a backyard where he could play. So we lived there for a while, and then he had to have surgery and was going to have it at the plant hospital. And a doctor there was going to do the surgery.
What kind of surgery did he have?
He had a hernia that had to be removed. And he was working at the plant at that time, you know.
Yeah.
The shell plant. He'd gotten on there. That's why we moved, because he found a job there. And so while he was there in the hospital, he moved me back to Mama's for me to stay. And then when he got able to go back to work, we found a place in Minden. He said it'd be closer and more convenient. So we got a place in Minden and stayed. We found an apartment out on...
Was Papa living in?
Yeah. He was living there. We got an
I
apartment.
tell you, I don't know what we'd do without the mamas. Now,
You
know,
were
I
at
went
my
to,
house making, we were making Johnny's layette when we got the call that Papa was so sick.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
we went
that's
on
right.
over there.
Yeah, I went to see Chloe. She was making some baby clothes for me and for Johnny. And
Did we get anything done? I guess I did that week, didn't I?
I guess so. I don't. But while I was there, we got a call that Dad had passed away, and so we went home.
Yeah, he was real sick. When we got there, he was still living.
Yeah,
He was sitting up in the chair, and I thought, well, maybe he's not so bad.
yeah,
But he couldn't lay down.
yeah.
He'd been in a
he
chair.
couldn't breathe. He couldn't,
Couldn't
breathe.
breathe.
And so they carried him to the hospital, and
He
he
died,
died
that night.
that night, I believe.
Yeah, we just did get there in time to see him alive.
Well, was that when my mom was living in Monroe?
Yeah,
Because that was right before I was born,
yeah,
I believe.
Yeah.
yeah. I know he wanted me to promise him on his deathbed that Curtis and I would move in with Mama
Oh.
and stay with her. He said that's the best arrangement he could think of for her. And Curtis had just gone into business for himself, you know. He and I can't remember who with.
Oh, yeah.
And I told him, I said, I can't make a promise to Curtis.
Yeah.
I says, I don't know what he would do. I said, how would he make a living? And I
Well,
said, he's just gone in.
I can't remember what, who stayed with the mother right after Daddy died. Anybody? Or did she stay by herself?
I don't know. But you know, she worked after that. And
Yeah.
you remember she kept children for a woman, a Miss Norris,
Oh.
for a long time. And then after that, and she worked at a cafe for a while.
Yeah, a cafe there in Farmerville.
And then she moved to Farmer. Don't you remember she had an apartment one time that she lived down there, and she worked at this cafe. That's where she was working. And I don't know. You know, Thelma may have been married to Stringfellow then. When did she have? Well, maybe that's when John Frank and Thelma moved in.
Yeah, John Frank and Thelma.
Moved in with her to stay with her.
Yeah.
You know, I can't remember all that. Like I say, I wish Thelma was living to tell us
Yeah,
all
she
these
could
things
tell
that we
us.
don't know.
What do you remember as far as when all the family got together back when we were kids and everything? I mean, I remember they used to have a.
That was the Turnage reunion, wasn't it?
I don't know. I can't. I just remember a whole bunch of people, you know, meeting there at the homestead.
Yeah. Well, I didn't get to come to every one of them. They would have them once a year, I think.
I didn't get to all of them, but we tried to get to most of them if we possibly could. But a lot of the times it would be when Murphy was coming home and everybody that could would come to see him. And, you know, I can't remember a lot about it. I know that when there was a get-together, as long as Grandma Turnage was living,
Yeah. Well, you know, Grandma
everybody liked to
Turnage
come
lived
to
with Mama.
Mama's house.
Yeah, live with
Yeah.
Mama. I don't know just how long, but
Well, you know, she stayed with Aunt Maud for a while.
yeah, but
She didn't like it.
She Aunt Maud was bossy. You know, I mean, she would tell her what to do, but Mama wouldn't. Mama let her do what she wanted to do. Oh, I'll just never forget that. Mama was so good. She just was good to everybody, you know.
Yeah, that's why that cousin of ours in Monroe would tell me, he said, you never will be as good as your mama. I said, you either. And she said, I look more like her than you'll ever look. She always tried to say things to hurt my feelings, but she never did.
She was something else.
So there was really only a few people, the family, that moved out of the area, like my mom and your Uncle Murphy, right, was it? And but there wasn't very many people that moved away from within 100 miles of here, I don't believe.
That's right.
And you see, my children all moved away from me.
Well, both of mine moved away, you know, and I can tell you, I don't see them near as often as I would like to see them.
Mine either.
And,
But you know, they have to go where their husbands find work to do and can make a living for them. And as Jeff said, that
Chloe lived in Baton Rouge a while, and then she lived in
now you mean Chloe or you mean
Gloria.
Gloria?
Gloria did, and then she moved to Colorado Springs.
Well, I didn't know all of that.
She was it Denver or
Denver.
and she taught school there, and she loved her school. And then they moved to
Was she married then?
Oklahoma City, but she didn't teach. They didn't stay there very long. And then they moved to Dallas, and so I guess they've been to Dallas ever since.
She was married then.
Yeah.
She,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she'd been married ever since she got out of college. And the principal that used to be at Farmerville was principal at the school in Baton Rouge.
Murphy?
No, I can't think of his name. I want to say Wade, but that's not it. And so he got her a school in Baton Rouge, and she taught school. That was her first school in Baton Rouge, and that was Kyle was born at that time. I went down there and stayed a week, I believe it was, somewhere along there. Well, they didn't have doodle squat. They didn't even have money to buy the groceries with. We bought groceries while we were there.
That's the way it was with Judy and Van. They wanted to get married, you know, before they got out of school. And I told them, I said, it's going to be hard for you, that they could both work and they could make it. Well, Curtis and I went over one Saturday to see them, and they still hadn't gotten home. And we got to looking in their cupboard, and those kids didn't have nothing to eat. Nothing. We did some snooping while they were out. So we went to the grocery store.
Yeah,
and
I know.
brought back some
I know.
I thought, and she said that when they were in school, this friend of hers, that her mother, they lived in Ruston.
Yeah.
And so their mother worked at a chicken processing place.
Yes.
And she always had fryers for her daughter.
Yeah.
Well, she'd get one and she'd have it with Judy and Van. And she said that's how they had meat to eat. The chicken.
My.
And she says, I've seen Van make coffee the 4th time with the same grounds.
Oh my.
Oh goodness, those kids. Of course, when they came home, we sent them back with a lot of stuff to eat and all of that. But they just wanted us to think that they were doing their own thing. Van's always been independent. And Judy said when they got out of college and he got a job and he brought his first paycheck in, he told Judy, he says, whatever you do, you buy something good to eat and plenty of it.
Oh,
Because they had
Lord.
skimped on food for so long
Yeah.
and eating stuff that would fatten and not be good for you because it was the cheapest.
Well,
Now, and of course, Jeff and Donna have gone through some very lean times, hard times.
yeah,
But they'd be so far away we wouldn't know about it.
yeah,
We've had to send them money at times,
yeah.
but he's doing well now. Has done for the 20 years he's been in business for himself.
What what do you remember as far as one of the most exciting things when you were in high school?
Oh, Lord. It did nothing that was exciting to me when we were going.
Oh, me. I don't know.
I don't know either.
I went
You know,
to a couple
we,
of
we
them.
were, I guess it was during the Depression, and we didn't even have uniforms to graduate in. We graduated in skirts and blouses, or just a dress, just anywhere. And I never will forget, I ordered a dress from Sears and Roebuck, and it was just what you call a Sunday dress,
Sunday dress.
and that's what I wore for graduation. And so,
Well, you know, we graduated in formals, and Aunt Erlene made mine for me. It was a white organdy,
oh,
and she
is that
made
right?
little ruffles all the way around. And it was a real pretty dress. She made little cap sleeves, ruffles on it, and all. I've got a picture.
Oh.
Curtis had made. I don't know where it is now. I guess it's at home somewhere. Of me in that dress.
I don't remember that you having that.
I did. I had, and I got there, and the others had these pretty colors and these pretty full skirts and all. I thought I was going to have the prettiest one there.
Yeah.
But everybody liked mine. It was a pretty dress.
Yeah.
And Arlene did a wonderful job of sewing.
Yeah, she
did
was real.
a real good job. And that was exciting. And then for the baccalaureate, we that was at the auditorium. And
How many kids were in your graduating classes?
you know, I believe there was 40-something in my class. You know, I can't remember.
I can't remember either.
But you know, I enjoyed the reunions that we had. I believe the first one that we ever had was a 20-year reunion. And then we had a 25-year, and after that, so many began to pass away that it was, you know, it was sad to go back and see those missed. And
Well, our class never did have a reunion, except one time when we came back to Lufkin. I mean, moved here. Cleo Taylor got it up. She said she would never do that, try to get that done again. And we had a reunion then. That's the only one I've ever been to.
well, I think Dr. Booth and someone else had worked on ours and got it, and it got to where it was too much of a trial, I think, to...
Well, we're having a Brantley reunion, June the 8th or 9th or somewhere along there. And Evelyn Washam used to get everybody together, you know, and doing all of that. And she did that for years. And so she gave it over to Faye and I think Yvonne. So they try to call everybody they know, you know, to come to it. So I don't know how it's going to turn out this time. And I told Faye, I said, I bet this will be the last of the Brantley reunion. And I said, I don't need to go, but I will, because I can't hear. You know, everybody's talking, and I don't hear a thing unless I'm right at them. And,
Yeah, keep it up long as you can. You know, they stop